Welcome to ET Studios Security Strokes, presented in association with ETCISO. This is a show that delves into the world of cybersecurity at a time when organizations are facing an ever-evolving threat landscape. Today's episode is all about zero trust, which is forcing organizations to re-examine the way they look at the word trust by itself and also re-examine their digital assets. Let's talk to top cybersecurity professionals today who are going to shed more light on this by way of their expertise, knowledge and experience. Thank you so much for joining us. First up, we have Smitesh Valanju, who's the CISO of Tata, Cliq and also Croma. We also have with us Ambarish Kumar Singh, who's the CISO of Godrej and Boyce. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
No, I really appreciate you taking out time from your busy schedule and being here with me. You know, that implies a level of trust from your side for sure. Thank you. So to start off with, zero trust is not any sort of software or technology. It's basically verification at each point, at every point. And now when there is a point of failure, would you say it is a tech stack or technology that is at fault and not an individual?
I wouldn't put it in such a binary state, right? Because if you look at the zero trust today, ultimately you're looking at trust which is kind of tending to zero, right? Obviously, it's impossible to achieve a true zero trust. So what you're doing is you're trying to eliminate the risks today with the organization has with more and more environment which is user-friendly. At the same time, it is challenging the very foundation based on which the trust is built, right? So one of the things is that, is it you're making the trust so difficult to achieve, or is it that you're trying to make it easy for the users? So there are multiple perspectives to it. So coming from different industries which I have worked for, right? So if I give you some examples of, say, capital market and banking. Now, a millisecond transaction has no way that you can insert a trust in between, right? Because that's a major friction. A healthcare industry where I worked with, obviously it's a life and death situation. Trust comes very, very last at the point. If you look at what I work with e-commerce today, with millions of customers and millions of transactions with a platform which is open to public, where do you look at trust, right? So if you think from the business perspective, it's always the risk point of view, and it's not a technology versus a user kind of a decision.
All right. Would you agree with that, Ambarish?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably I'd like to add what said. Take an example of, I just want to simplify what is zero trust for everybody to understand. Pandemic, right? Clear example of zero trust. Son is not trusting mother is not trusting son, husband, father is just hospitalized, but nobody is able to touch because there is a zero trust because pandemic is there, and you want to verify every time you come to the room, you have to scan yourself, you have to test, etc. Right? One example. Second example is like I spent around 20 years in defense forces. So defense forces we have been practicing this for many decades. People ask me, what is the difference between defense and corporate? I keep saying that I came from zero trust to full trust, and now here you want to implement zero trust. So zero trust, if you look at nutshell what said. It's all about the strategy, all about, user don't care whether you are implementing zero trust or something else. You want to have a seamless access to each application. So you want to build that kind of technology stack, people process technology stack together to ensure that you are able to address those risks which are posed to the cybersecurity professionals and the organization.
Okay, that was a very good example of the pandemic, right? Where you believe in everyone, but you can't trust anyone because they themselves don't know if they are safe or not. And I think those are the principles of your zero trust strategy as well. Now, in an organization, and the two of you with your extensive careers, how does one build a zero trust architecture?
So if you ask architecture point of view, right? So there are certain things which, I mean, if I have to simplify it for the viewers, it's like A, B, C, D, E of zero trust, right? So A stands for complete accountability. That's a very, very foundation for zero trust. B, if you look at, I mean, a little bit of a mathematics, because when I come from a background of physics and mathematics, a Bayesian network, right? So where you learn from your hypothesis and experiments and keep improvising, right? What you've already learned and how do you improvise that model. C is more about the culture, which is very integral part of zero trust, right? So no zero trust will be successful if you don't actually have that alignment with the organization's culture. Otherwise, you're creating what is the last point of F, is the friction, right? I'll come to that separately. Then if you look at the D, which is democratization, it has to be a democratic approach. You cannot have a special use cases where you say, okay, you know what, I trust A, but I don't trust B, right? My CEO can walk in and go wherever I want, but then probably my analyst will have to, jump the hoops to go to maybe access simple server. So that cannot be. It has to be a democratic approach, right? When you look at the E, which is more about the enabler for the business. So zero trust cannot be seen by the business that now I don't have ease of doing business. Right? Which has to enable. That means that zero trust should be able to tell you that, hey, you know what, when a business wants to partner with a new startup to launch a new analytics platform, or hey, a business wants to probably integrate a new solution which has been recently launched, or take, for example, AI, right? So how many of the businesses today have already started adopting AI without any of their security teams knowing about it, right? Which is a reality today. Now, imagine a zero trust, which is telling you that, hey, you know what, you cannot go to that website and this website, and you can only do this, only do that. Business cannot survive. So that's the A, B, C, D, E, which I think of a zero trust. If you look at, then you obviously have a solution, a framework, and obviously the technology solutions, models, all of that can come and follow that.
No, you just said A, B, C, D. I'm curious, does it go till Z or till F?
So far I have reached till F.
Okay, that's interesting. I was going to ask him, what does Q stand for then?
Absolutely, yes. I'm sure we can evolve that. Probably we'll take help from ChatGPT.
But that's very true. And, earlier we were speaking and he was also talking about how in elsewhere, like in the United States, you don't even have an OTP, right? Like a credit card is just, you enter the details and that's it. So culture is also very important. You need a culture that is accepting your zero trust and aligns with it as well, very well.
Right.
How would you like to?
Yeah, so I think Smitesh just spoke very well. So I'd like to add what he said. See, you gave example of US and somebody else. So it's majority of the cybersecurity programs, about any program, fail not due to the technology, it fails due to the change management and the culture, how we are driving that culture. So what you want to implement something which is going to be disruptive in the organization. Could be digital transformation, or you want to drive the cybersecurity transformation journey. You have to manage that change with. No matter which organization you are. Certain organizations you are able to drive that faster, certain organizations you are able to drive that slower, depending on the industry you are operating in. Second thing is, for every organization, journey to the zero trust is going to be different. Because today they are into different stages are there. Basic cybersecurity hygiene journey. Okay, somebody is level 1, level 2, level 3. And if you want to, what I keep talking about is, if you want to achieve that zero trust journey, as a CISO, as a cybersecurity practitioner, what we have to think is what we are doing today, how it is going to help me in achieving the overall journey of zero trust, which could be a journey of 5 years, 10 years. It's not that single bullet we have. Okay. So a lot of things you can do quick wins, a lot of things you have to do in short-term, long-term planning, roadmap, a lot of investment has to go in. And foremost thing we need to look at whether your organization is in that cultural mindset that you want to achieve the zero trust, which you want to do it, or you just want to do it because everyone is doing it. That is very important. Get the business context where you are operating, etc., whether that is going to make sense or not.
Now, speaking of zero trust, is also a coupled problem with that, which is that of legacy, because security doesn't exist in an isolated state. How do you make legacy systems speak to zero trust framework?
So, we look at the organization those have been existing for maybe more than 20 years. The last 20 years, new age organization born in cloud, tech stack. So they are where user base is new, young. They don't know how to handle it. Look at the legacy applications organization. They've got a lot of tech and security. So probably there are a lot of different strategies you need to adopt to make them compatible to the zero trust. Okay. So even if any organization you take, there are security tech that older technologies, there are new stack. So you need to look at how you want to strategize whole thing to achieve an overall aim of zero trust. So there will quick wins. Okay, you handle that first. Second thing is how to mitigate this security detected. You need to have long-term and short-term plan. One is the app modernization. It means you want to modernize your tech stack. Thereafter, if you feel like there is a requirement, you migrate to cloud, where you will, even if down the line 10 years, you will not be answering the same question what you are answering today. So your tech stack getting modernized, upgraded with the time. And then probably whenever you reach your stage of zero trust, which you have the journey of 5-10 years, those technology will help you to adopt. But today it will be difficult. But if you start thinking for tomorrow, those thought process seeding has to be done today.
But you're speaking about the cloud model, right? So that's another question that I have. Can you talk to us about how the zero trust architecture speaks or exists within the hybrid model or cloud?
Sure. So if you think of how you look at the zero trust in that environment, right? The very premise of zero trust is the organization is perimeterless, right? Now, when you talk about hybrid or a multi-cloud or work from anywhere or, organizations which have spread across geographies, that's exactly the foundation. Now, with zero trust being that foundation where you don't have the perimeter, what's the next thing? Now, where the organizations are evolving with the business, with the approach, with the speed, the zero trust still has a little bit of a catch up to do, right? And I'll give you examples. So, for example, when you look at the zero trust today, in a way, you're enforcing the organization to maintain a central identity store, right? Or a central policy store where you can govern things which are being kind of going out of control or which are being kind of, spread across the organization or multi-cloud or hybrid in the environment. Now, if you want to anchor the organization just for the sake of security while the organization is trying to expand, again, that's going to be a friction point. Now, if you look at how they are evolving today, take, for example, a gig workforce, right? Or take, for example, the digital customer base who is transacting on the very same platform where your developers or the actual technology team or the business team is also accessing, which is public facing completely, right? Or where you think of a platform which is integrated with multiple startups for that instance, right? Because today no organization is having application in its own environment in a cocoon. There's no black box. You have so many points of integrations that you don't really have a track of those. So in that environment, when you think of a zero trust, there is still a bit of a catch-up which will have to be done from a zero trust point of view. I mean, again, coming back to the example of AI, when the organization is adopting an AI platform for analytics, right? How would zero trust apply there? So if you look at those examples or those problems to solve, just by applying zero trust as a policy or as a solution is not going to be sufficient, but there will have to be a creative approach over there, right? And what that creative approach will mean ultimately is you should be ready to adopt zero trust as a framework, but not tied down to a particular solution. Not tied down to that, hey, you know what, things should be done this way only. It has to be also, again, going back to the ABCDEF model, it has to be that, more business centric, more user friendly, frictionless, at the same time ensuring that the risks which the organization is worried about are taken care of.
When it comes to zero trust, right, at the end point, what are the kind of various methods that you have perhaps seen? I mean, the ones we have seen, of course, are your numbers and digits, or maybe an OTP, or then you have that, you touch a box to tell us which is a traffic signal. But have you seen any innovative ones?
Now, there are so many of them which are evolving now. Obviously, now the idea is how do you make it more and more transparent to the user, right? So the idea is that you do not want to have that friction seen by the user. So how can you trust without that user interaction is what is evolving now, right? So can I actually know that you are using the mobile, which you have always with you, and your behavior on that device is kind of predictable, right?
Behavioral pattern, of course.
Now, when you are using your mobile versus I'm using your mobile, there will be a different signature. Right? So those are the things which obviously with the advent of AI and all the analytics and more kind of a computing power that you get at the data centers and with the organizations, that's where it is going to evolve. Obviously now I'm sure people know about, when you talk about say a passwordless security or authentication, which is not really a interactive system anymore, right? Now, there is obviously another issue with it, where coming back to the privacy piece, right? Touching upon that a little bit. Now, when you talk about, say, a facial recognition. Now, facial recognition in today's world, while it was considered to be one of the kind of a solution which is more advanced and which could be adopted quickly, with the whole issue of the AI and all the challenges that we are seeing with the personification and the manipulation of these images and the videos, that is kind of getting killed, right? Because now you have to actually overcome those issues before you can actually trust that particular facial recognition system or software. So those are the things I think which we'll have to figure out as a challenge to overcome.
Absolutely.
AI coming in, especially generative AI and the quantum computing is on the corner. I think traditional this encryption methodology is going to be challenged. We're going to create a lot of issues for the cybersecurity tech.
Absolutely. That's what we were talking about, right? That despite all the data, when you have a breach, you just rely on your encryption. But with AI that's kind of coming in, it's so difficult to maintain that encryption. People are going to be able to decode it or decrypt it.
Disruptive technology, right? Today, we have been talking about generative AI. Disruptive, right? There are positive uses, there is negative uses.
I have to say only CISOs talk about the negative uses because I think you guys deal with them on a day-to-day basis, right? No code, malicious applications are being used to target organizations.
Because the gap is widening. It's been if we talk about, we have a bunch of cybersecurity technology, right? If you really look at how many are really leveraging the power of AI enabled. Everyone talks about my technology is AI ML enabled. Whether they are really enabling that. Today, look at we have those technology to protect. Where other side, the cyber criminals have got now generative AI to use to their maximum. So gap is widening.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think 2-3 days back we were talking about it. The OEM has to catch up a lot to provide us those shields which CISOs can use to protect. However, CISOs also have the power of generative AI to protect them. But this will take a lot of time. They're not ready yet, right? And there are a lot of things that has to be done. I think it was Ratty talking about right use of AI, generative AI is going to fast track the journey of the zero trust. Okay. But we are still to see how this is going to mature because the generative AI 3.5, 4 and now 5.0 is going to come. The things are moving very fast. So I think a lot of things are going to be disrupted.
But right now, the cyber criminals are leading the race in using AI to target, because I guess the evolution of AI to protect is still in its nascent stage. When it happens, it's going to be invaluable for organizations.
They are using this very powerfully on the social media, the deepfake video, deepfake audios. They are making the fraud.
And extortion is happening using that.
A lot of fraud happening in cybercrime or UPI fraud. Okay? People are just calling and your wife is calling, right? And you say that, see, 1,000 rupees that you transfer that 1,000 rupees by UPI. It's happening as we speak.
Yeah, they're using the voice, they're using the AI voice, and they're going ahead, and people have fallen prey to this.
All those deepfakes are reality, unfortunately. I mean, it's basically a flip side of the coin, right? So if you look at it, the very technology, and it's not new, right? If I call it, it's been there already.
It's just become easier.
It's just become easier.
It's become easier for anyone to do it. At least earlier you needed to know, have the expertise to do that sort of either Photoshop or video editing. Now you don't need to do anything, right? You just need to input something, and there you have this entire, deception made out for you.
Very much.
Now, coming back to zero trust strategies, how do you measure the impact of a zero trust strategy on an organization or on a business? Because I'm sure you expected to show results. So how do you tangibly show that?
So if you look at the measurements, right, and this goes back to the very fundamental question that what do you do when you think of a security for business, right? So ultimately you are trying to manage risks. That's all that matters, right, from a business point of view. So if you take that view from a risk point of view, there are three things that would matter the most. What is the likelihood? What is the impact? And what are the countermeasures that you have? Now, when it comes to measurements, the countermeasures or the controls, which we call from a security parlance perspective, is very easy to measure. You can always show that, okay, you know what, I have so many of X technology solutions implemented. I have a coverage of so many endpoints and so many users, and say so many users are covered under MFA and XYZ. Those are very, very easy, very, very tangible things from a countermeasure perspective. But if you look at the organization or the leadership or the stakeholders, it doesn't provide any insight to them. It is like, okay, you have done all the efforts, very good. Okay, what next?
Okay.
Right? So that's the first thing of the measurement. The second, when you look at the impact. Now, impact is very, very dynamic because your organization's business environment is always changing. Your technology environment is always changing. So the impact is always going to be a factor of these two. And you can't really put a finger saying that, you know what, this impact is going to be so much if something goes wrong here and there, and this is how you control it, or this is how you would want to manage that impact. Again, there are certain measures over there from an impact perspective where there are some proxy metrics there, right? So like availability or your performance, or say in a kind of for a zero trust environment, how much friction you have introduced, or what is the NPS or the Net Promoter Score from a user's point of view, right? From their adoption or acceptability of the solution. So that's if you look at the impact type of measurement. Coming back to the likelihood, which is like a most complex but most value-add thing, right, for the business. Now there, it has a factor of a lot of things, and most of those factors are uncontrollable. Because you're looking at what is your risk landscape, what is your threat footprint, what is the evolution in terms of the threat, like what we talked about, what's the AI being used for, good, bad, ugly, from a adversary's perspective, how advanced they are, which you can't really capture, which you can't really put a number to. So it's always going to be a subjective thing when it comes to likelihood, but the actual measurement or the impact of that risk from a zero trust perspective lies there. Now, how do you measure that is always going to be something what I call a factor of, again, coming back to the calculus, right? Have you approached that zero trust, that trust tending to zero, to a level where business says that, hey, you know what, we have all of that, we have a confidence, but yet it is easy to do business. I don't feel friction. I'm able to take my decisions without any constraints. I can decide whom I want to partner with. I can decide what solution I want to integrate with without having any of these conflicting arguments, right? If that's the environment, that's the feedback, that those are the subjective kind of KPIs which you keep capturing in some kind of a numbers. And then if that's what you're measuring, I think that's a success that you have for your zero trust.
All right, that was very detailed indeed. Ambarish, how would you?
Yes, I like what Smitesh said. Very difficult to measure ROI. So as a business leader, they want to say, what is ROI? Say sales guy in marketing, and they will be able to give like this, right? Business guys, I sold 5 items, and here is the ROI, right? But in cybersecurity, I just talked about qualitative and quantitative analysis we do, right? A lot of things are intangible benefits. Okay, that's why I think I read somewhere that in cybersecurity we should talk about return on mitigation. Not ROI, talk about
ROM. Okay.
Return on mitigation. So if you mitigated certain risk, so what is the return you are getting? Your first thing is you are trying to protect the value at risk. It means, suppose your organization gets breached. You have done some calculation. What is the value at risk? Suppose, take example of critical infrastructure gets breached. What is the value you are protecting? It means your business is down for 2 days. Your customers are may not. Suppose you are the e-commerce website. It is down for 2 days. Customer will not be able to log in. You're losing business for that. There will be reputational and legal loss. There could be some penalty. So that you calculate some value, assume something, and there is a value you create. That I have mentioned that. Probably you're trying to protect value at risk. Second thing is brand and legal and reputational risk. You're trying to protect. These languages, I think leaders understand well. You talked about this is what the value at risk. They may say, okay, it has not happened before, so likelihood of happening, which you're talking about, is maybe less. Okay, what next? Then you talk about, suppose you get breached, your reputation is at stake, and then it is going to impact your business further. It is going to impact your revenue. Then they start thinking about, these guys are making some sense.
This is very insurance angle.
Yes.
To think.
That's why, see, a lot of people, we cannot address all the risks. So we have a lot of strategy. Either you mitigate the risk, you accept the risk, or you transfer the risk. The cyber insurance, you're transferring that risk from to cater for the financial losses you may incur if there is a cyber breach. And then you will be able to cater for this, not for the reputation and all, but at least somebody supposed to, there's a customer data breach. Due to the various act, customer may ask for the certain, go to the court for the some kind of, there could be court judgment that pays so much of amount that get covered by cyber insurance. Second thing is, suppose you lose your business for 2 days, the cyber insurance guys are going to pay. Third thing is, you need to manage your reputation and legal risk anyways. So the organizations are taking, okay, why not to take a cyber insurance so that we have some coverage in the case of there's a cyber breach. Because anyway, we know that we will not be able to address all the cyber risks we have. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of commitment, a lot of budget. So
do you think more organizations now have a cyber insurance as well? A lot of them are opting for it?
Yes, absolutely. I think cyber insurance is in a way catching up. It has also become a reality for most of the organization. The challenge is obviously there's very, very, very less actuarial data with it, right? Because you don't know from both the insurer's point of view, the underwriter's point of view, as well as from the organization's point of view. You don't know what is the number that you want to insure against, and you don't know what could be the impact from the underwriter's point of view that you will get into. Because as you see today, the ransoms, right? The amount of ransom is going higher and higher and higher.
And there's also double extortion, which takes place.
Right? Now, at what point you would say that, you know what, this failure is because of the failure of controls or the governance within the organization, or is it a genuine incident after doing whatever that they could reasonably do? So that's always a point of, discussion, conflict or debate when incident occurs with the cyber insurance and the underwriters.
It's just like we take health insurance, right? So people ask you, okay, you take a health insurance and everything covered. You diagnosed with some disease. You go to the hospital, then you realize this is not covered under insurance. If it is covered, you get treatment, otherwise not covered. That's why he is talking about. There are a lot of assumptions are made when you take a cyber insurance. When actual thing happens, so whether you are covered or not, then you start discovering. At times it is very surprising.
No, that is one part of it, and also I think what happens is it's very difficult to put it in a kind of a binary format, right? How much control is enough control? You don't know. Because ultimately in security, you can't really say that I have done enough, right? There's always something which you would want to do. That's why what we say, right? Security is always a journey. The risk is always going to be there. It's about whether or not you're actually aware of that risk and whether or not you have said that I am okay to accept or acknowledge that risk.
Yes. Because you're taking that decision based on the facts you have, you have due diligence by taking certain these kind of steps.
All right, it's been so interesting to have an insider and an expert's perspective on zero trust and on cybersecurity. It's been a very enlightening discussion, but also lively. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and pleasure for having us here.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to have two of the top cybersecurity professionals in the country, and I get to discuss the biggest threats that our organizations are facing today. So it's been my honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Please stay tuned to the Economic Times for more such enlightening and lively discussions.